SUVs and crossovers might be what Americans are buying these days, but not everyone wants to look like a camper 24/7, 365. The 2020 Chevy Blazer is less birdwatching, more urban tourer. Think of it as the offspring of Traverse and Camaro. With a narrow band of glass, the design DNA leans towards the pony car, though Blazer is much more of a practical choice. Try to get 3 adults into a Camaro backseat and you could be charged with a felony. Like Ford Edge, GMC Terrain, Jeep Grand Cherokee, Honda Passport, Nissan Murano, and Subaru Outback, Blazer seats 5. There is no third row. Chevrolet has used this name in the past, resurrecting it for a crossover. It's a sore spot for the faithful.
You probably remember the nameplate was used on a full-size truck-based SUV through the 70s until 1995, until the bow tie brand renamed it Tahoe. And even then, it soldiered on as the smaller S10 Blazer based on, anyone? Yes, the compact S10 pickup. And if you're not crazy about Chevy recycling the Blazer name, understand that the Trailblazer is coming back as a small crossover, slotting in between Equinox and Trax. Don't shoot the messenger.
If the design catches your eye, make sure the brain is engaged when ordering one up. There are 6 different models, and they come with 3 engines. For example, the base L version with a starting retail price of $30,000 moves probably a little slowly with a 2.5-liter normally aspirated 4-cylinder and is strictly front-wheel drive. For all-wheel drive, move up to the 2LT model with its 230 horsepower, 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. That's a sticker price bump of $6,000. 2LT and 3LT are also available with a 3.6-liter V6. Remember, engage the brain when ordering. RS and this premium model that I'm driving only come with the V6, which makes 308 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque to move this 4,200-pound machine around. All Blazers shift gears with a 9-speed transmission. The lever has a hefty mechanical feel for quick and accurate selection. Manual shifts are possible, but not here. These are the sound system volume controls. It's done on the lever, which is a bit awkward. All-wheel drive is not an automatic thing with Blazer. It's a setting. This knob is also used for the various drive modes. The V6 can tow up to 4,500 pounds. Now, because you physically have to put Blazer into all-wheel drive, it's very easy to forget and start in front-wheel drive. And you might experience torque steer, which is that tugging of the steering wheel under hard acceleration. Keep a hand on the wheel, don't want to veer off into the Johnson's yard. The good news is, if you put it in all-wheel drive and then shut the car down, leave, and then come back, it stays in all-wheel drive. Now, with the V6, the Blazer is pretty punchy. 0 to 60 happens easily in under 7 seconds, and it feels really good doing it. I really like V6s. FYI, the 6 gets a different twin-clutch all-wheel drive system that's specially tuned for off-road situations, directing torque to the left or right rear wheels for best traction. The Blazer doesn't have the ground clearance of, say, Subaru Outback or Jeep Grand Cherokee, so it's less suited for trail duty, but on pavement, especially in corners, it shines. I do like the driving dynamics of the Blazer, sort of Camaro-esque. Body roll and dive are very nicely controlled, especially for a crossover. Steering weight is nice and hefty. There's actually some road feel coming up through the wheel, and it's locked down on center on the highway. Plus, it's comfortable. The suspension is a bit on the firm side, but it's not harsh. Driving dynamics are much better than any of the old truck-based Blazers. At highway speeds, wind and road noise is moderate. This is not a luxury crossover with a whisper-quiet cabin. From the driver's seat, Blazer feels like a pretty big rig. You sit up high, it feels wide, and visibility-wise, these are kind of narrow, not as bad as a Camaro, but visibility is not that great. Check your blind spot, and all you're going to see is a big D pillar. I highly recommend the blind spot warning system in this vehicle. It's an extra cost and not available on lower trim models. Same with automatic emergency braking. These should at least be optional on all models, so shop carefully if you want active electronic safety tech. That's becoming standard on many vehicles. Adding auto emergency braking and adaptive cruise control is a package that's over $2,100 for the Premier that I'm driving.
Let's talk about the automatic engine start-stop system. A lot of people complain about them. This one is really pretty good. You can easily turn it off, but I think you may not even notice it happening. So you won't turn it off.
All Blazer engines run on regular grade gas, so this is not a mileage champ. The V6 average EPA fuel efficiency of 21 miles per gallon is about the same as Grand Cherokee and Passport, a little thirstier than Edge and Murano, and 5 mpg less efficient than Outback with the turbo engine, though the Subaru has a continuously variable transmission, which doesn't feel as satisfying.
I've been in Blazer for a couple days now. I've tried to trip up the 9-speed transmission and no go. It's pretty well calibrated, very nice and smooth.
Together with crisp shifts and the muted growl of the V6, there's character here not found in other crossovers. If you've ever been in a Camaro, you'll see a lot of similarities to Blazer's cabin. This being the fancy top trim Premier, you would expect it to look good in here, and I'm happy to say questionable looking plastics are kept to a minimum, though not completely banned. The heated wheel has a memory setting, a big win if your spouse is dramatically bigger or smaller. Ask me how I know. If the back seat or cargo area is filled up, this camera-based rear view is clutch. Seats are more than just comfortable. They're heated and vented with subtle trim that's repeated on the dash. I didn't get a good shot of the ambient lighting, but this space looks great at night. Storage is important since crossovers are usually pushed into family duty. There's a whole lot of that happening in Blazer. A remote button for the glove box is normally reserved for Cadillacs. Fingers slide satisfyingly into the big door releases, something that's touched all the time.
You may not buy a Blazer, but if you go on vacation, you might rent one and have trouble figuring out the climate control. It's this ring right here. Just a public service that I provide.
Considering this is the top model, the user interface's touchscreen is on the small side. Some, like Outback, are as large as iPads these days. GM makes up for that with excellent response and a well-organized menu. There's not a lot of hunting around. There is no jog wheel controller, but there are enough hard buttons. Chevy wisely provides a choice of USB 3 and C ports to future-proof Blazer, thank you very much, and it's no surprise to find Android Auto and Apple CarPlay standard since GM was way ahead of the curve on that, but it's not wireless, even though that kind of charging is available.
This isn't a small crossover. I'm assuming the back seat is pretty roomy? Kind of. We're both 5'9". Anybody taller than that might have headroom issues, and this car does not have the sunroof. Also, the door opening's not particularly big, so getting child seats in and out might be an issue. You should bring those along for the test drive.
Engineers could have lowered the seats for more noggin space, but kept it at the proper level for good thigh support, and it adjusts to max out leg or cargo room. That's a win. And pockets on both seats, because these things get used. The Premier has bun warmers, a shout out to those in Duluth. So long as you bring cords, anything can be charged back here. I'm trying to stay hydrated. Big pockets are encouraging. But no built-in sunshades? This is the Premier, right? Leg and foot room are generous. The floor is super flat, which means 3 adults would be okay here since the seat is wide, if a bit on the flat side, as long as people aren't too long in the torso and the narrow glass doesn't make kids claustrophobic. Blazer is good for family hauling.
Just wanted to show you, I did come to Costco, but I can't do the TP trunk test because they're out. They are completely out of stock. Strange times we're living in. I can still show you around though, starting with this cargo divider, which is nice. It locks into different positions, and if you like, it can be removed very easily. It folds up and stows in here. I'm not going to do that because I've got some GoPro stuff. Spare tire, good to see that.
Even with the seats all the way back, this space is deep, so Remote releases are good to have. I prefer 40-20-40 split seats to carry long things like skis down the middle. At least the load floor is perfectly flat, if not on the high side. Since I can't use the usual 2-ply to show you the trunk size, I will instead use all the stuff my wife put on the shopping list. I keep threatening to come home with a big screen TV, and I could have done that with Blazer. If I were using TP, I'm pretty sure 9 bundles of softness and absorbency would stash pretty easily here.
Well, there you go. Tune in next week to see if they've got any stock in.
Blazer's wedge design is bound to polarize, but it's refreshing to see something different that's not swaddled in cladding. Even if these strong lines are not your thing, good to have choice in the market. Dark paints like black and this midnight blue metallic subdue the character of the strong lines, while silver, white, and red pop the personality and show off the floating roof element. As far as price goes, this top trim all-wheel drive Premier MSRPs for $49,000. A panoramic sunroof would add $1,600. That's on the high side, but is, of course, before haggling and incentives. It is my experience that General Motors sets their retail price very, very high so that when you go into the dealership, you feel like you're getting a great deal, thousands and thousands of dollars off the price. Is this smart when people internet shop a lot? I don't know, but that is my experience with General Motors pricing. Many crossover buyers have no intentions of venturing into the great outdoors or tackling tough terrain. They're dropping off kids at piano lessons and making Costco runs. Pressed into that kind of service, this Chevy makes sense. For those wanting something stylish, roomy, and fun to drive, Blazer takes the paved road less traveled. I was a little surprised at how much positive attention the Blazer got here in Seattle, a town that loves its Subarus. A couple in a Forester was very curious about it, but blanched when I told them the list price. And yes, we talked at a distance in the parking lot with COVID-19 happening here. Most of us are being very careful, as we all should be, to keep transmission to the most threatened to a minimum. Don't want what's happening in Italy to repeat itself here. A little bit of common sense helps a lot. And I've got to say, I can't remember when the traffic moves so easily here, even in rush hour.
You've stuck around to the very end, so I'm assuming that you enjoyed this video. So I highly suggest that you click subscribe and then notifications so you never miss one. And information like this, names. Turns out it's very difficult for automakers to come up with new ones, which is one reason why they revive heritage names like Blazer and use alphanumeric monikers. They're even running out of those. Story for you, years ago, Ford wanted to revive the Futura name, but they found that they had let the copyright lapse. Turns out that Pep Boys was using Futura for a line of tires, and since it was in the automotive space, they said, nope, Ford, you can't use it. So Ford was forced to name that car the Fusion. Yep, Fusion was supposed to be Futura. See, that's why you want to subscribe to this channel. Information like that, right? Right. That's Driven. I'm Tom Voelk.